All right. Well, I'm very excited for our next presenter, a friend and a colleague. Julie Thomson is co-curator and co-author of Weaving at Black Mountain College. Annie Albers, Trudy, last name? Garenpray, and their students at Black Mountain College. She is an educator, artist, independent scholar, and curator who lives in Black Mountain, North Carolina. She has been researching and writing about artists at Black Mountain College since 2006 and served as the co-editor of the Journal of Black Mountain College Studies from 2018 through 2020. She is the author of Begin to See, The Photographs of Black Mountain College, and the editor of That Was the Answer, Interviews with Ray Johnson. As part of her research for Weaving at Black Mountain College, she started weaving in 2019. So please give a warm welcome to Julie Thomson. You want to come here?
And then is this the... All right. Thank you all for being inside. I am also an environmental educator, and I know it's a beautiful day. But I think I have heard so many wonderful presentations for this conference. I hope it very much becomes an annual tradition because it is, it is tremendous, and I've met so many amazing people here who I didn't know before. So thanks, Mike, for the invitation and all your work, and Matthew, you're awesome already, I know it. So, I have been researching and writing about artists at Black Mountain College since 2006. This is the longest relationship of my life. I started with Ray Johnson, and I was like, so how do you relate to Ray Johnson? And I just had this really Ray Johnson narrow focus. Luckily, Ray Johnson was there for 3 years, so he took a lot of classes. There's beautiful photographs that I'll get into, but Ray Johnson is what led me to the world of Black Mountain College. And I've learned so much. What do I want to say? I guess I'm an art historian, but I also am an art historian because I'm curious about why people become the artists or makers that they become. I too came from a family of makers. My mom was a home ec teacher, and she sews and she quilts. My grandma on my mom's side was a knitter, and she had the pass-up knitting machines, even the computer-y ones. And so I think I was destined to become a weaver, but it's taken me 45 years to figure that out. So I am so pleased to get to share this about my own weaving, because I've talked about this exhibition in various ways, but this is the first time I've gotten to talk about how it led me to become a weaver, too. All right. Ooh, this clicker. All right, wonderful. Just very, very brief historical notes about Black Mountain, just because if you don't know what the college is, it could all be confusing from there forward, because some people think it is still open, and that's lovely, but it was an educational experiment that I like to say persisted for 23 years. Some people say it failed. That's the wrong mindset for me. 23 years is a very long time for an experiment. So I always like to say it's a place of persistence. So right behind me, you're seeing some photographs of the Blue Ridge Assembly Campus. This is still there, and it was there before Black Mountain. So they were renters at this campus, and they were there from 1933 to 1941. Of course, I could say more, but I'm leaving it there for right now. But this is across, where are we right now? Across the Swannanoa Valley when you're in Black Mountain, and then they moved to a second campus called Lake Eden. And they're actually able to purchase this campus, so they're able to operate year-round when they get there. And so, oops, let me go back. So they're at Blue Ridge Assembly from 1933 to 1941. They buy the Lake Eden property in 1937, if I'm remembering correctly, and then they open for the fall semester in 1941 there. And they persist until 1956 with classes. But if you see the year 1957, that's right too, because they were doing kind of a curriculum in the world other places. But again, we'll leave it for there for right now. Black Mountain College studies are largely built upon a foundation that Mary Emma Harris, Black Mountain College scholar, who's in our audience today. Thank you, Mary Emma. But she was working on a project as part of a research project in the 1970s. And so she was able to research people, talk to them, collect oral histories. As you all know, those are so important for our work and our histories, and get the story from them directly. She wrote one of the foundational books. It does include a history of weaving, but we're able to go deeper in this, I guess, decade. Let's say we're in a decade today, and I'll tell you the reasons why. But this is an amazing foundation for this area of studies. All right, this brings us to me and Michael. These pictures are on our Instagram, so if you want to see the evolution of an exhibition, we played with that because play is so important, as Kelly taught us. I think we were just inspired by what we were doing, and we'd worked so hard. This is a labor of love that was 4 years of research and work, and we did have the exhibition and then a book, which is really wonderful. I should add one historical note, just about what Black Mountain was. It was a liberal arts college that placed the arts at the center of the curriculum. And I know we've been talking about the place of arts and crafts in other panels today. But one of the founding faculty members, John Andrew Rice, said this about the school. Our central and consistent effort is to teach method, not content, to emphasize process, not results, to invite the student to the realization that the way of handling facts and himself amid the facts is more important than facts themselves. And elsewhere, the faculty wrote in a document called The Story of Black Mountain College, the aim of Black Mountain College was to educate a student as a person and as a citizen. So these were big ideas about what Black Mountain College was, and it was definitely hands-on learning and learning through doing. But again, we'll leave it at there for right now, but I just wanted everyone to understand the space from which this educational experiment was coming. All right, I met Michael Beggs, who's pictured here, who was my co-curator and co-author of the exhibition and book at the Joseph and Annie Albers Foundation over a decade ago. And Michael knows so much because he was at the Albers Foundation for about 5 years. And so when he was done with grad school, and I'll tell you a little bit more about how we kind of started collaborating before that. He's an architect, he's a designer currently, but finishes his exams in architecture. Michael is an amazing material study researcher. If you see any photographs by Joseph Albers in this presentation, Michael identified a lot of those because of the film that Joseph was using. But Michael knows about Annie. Of course, if you're doing a weaving exhibition, you have to include Annie Albers. And so I was grateful that Michael said he'd collaborate with this with me. I fell in love with the work of Trude Guermonprez, and so they were the big bookends for our approach to this exhibition and research. And just to give you the dates, this was up last fall at the Black Mountain College Museum and Art Center in Asheville. There is a digital exhibition, so not quite the same, but there's a digital exhibition and book, and I'll share those at the very end for anyone who didn't see it in person. We do also have these installation photographs that I can share with you, so at least you can glimpse it in a digital sort of way. But this is the upstairs of the Black Mountain College Museum and Art Center. We had the intro wall, which was actually the door to the weaving room and weaving classroom. And then on the back side of the wall, we had an actual loom from Black Mountain College. And that is in the Black Mountain College Museum and Art Center's collection. And I'll tell you more about that loom, but we had a loom in the room. The exhibition was organized in themes, and let me just make sure I get those. All right, so learning to weave and practical textiles were on the left side of the gallery as you entered in, and weaving as art was on the right side. So this beautiful Don Page textile starts the right side of the gallery. This also, the Don Page textile lives here in Western Regional Archives, which I'll talk more about. But if you'd like to see this and some of those textiles in person, you can make an appointment to do so. All right, this is further down the wall from the Don Page textile, two views. We've got Annie Albers, a weaving she made at Black Mountain College, and then more Don Page works and Trudy Guillermo's work. The back wall, which I have some more pictures of. This was about the Harriet Engelhart Memorial Collection, which is a fantastic collection of ancient pre-Columbian textiles that Annie Albers curated for Black Mountain College. There's an essay in the book, but that kind of was where we handled that. You get some more of the practical textiles coming on through, and then we get into an exciting back section called Contemporary Connections, where we included work by 5 contemporary artists in the exhibition, just to make sure that this idea, it's a living legacy, it's an active legacy, came forward in what we're doing. Downstairs, we also had making clothes and some examples of clothes. The middle one was made by Annie right here. So also, if you were ever wondering how big a person Annie was, that gave you a really interesting kind of experience of Annie was quite small, even though she's a giant in the world of weaving. And then this section, we ended up calling weaving literacy, but it was kind of, as we were developing it, we called it not weaving, because we're like, if we do this exhibition, people are going to ask about Ruth Asawa, and I'll get to that in a moment. So how do we include Ruth and some of these other things that have a conversation with weaving, but are not quite weaving? The roots for this also begin in the exhibition that I curated about the photographers at Black Mountain College. This was back in 2017, also at the Black Mountain College Museum and Art Center, and it was accompanied by a catalog. And through that, I was looking at the amazing photos. And I think if anyone has seen photos from Black Mountain College, my hope, or I wonder if you found them inspiring in any way. Like, what are they doing? Who are they? They're such beautifully made photographs. Who made the photographs, and how are they not like other photographs that we see of places? These two, I think, really, if you had to get back to one photograph, this photograph of Mimi French is just, what is she thinking? What is she doing? And this is Danny Deaver, and I should add here too that the weaving program both had female and male students in it at the time, so that's very different than Annie's education at the Bauhaus. All right, this iconic photograph of Annie Albers, made by Helen Postmotley, who is amazing as a photographer. But this is before Rosie the Riveteer. This is, this is 1937. Annie's got American fashion down. She's got a bandana on and a sweatshirt. She is living in North Carolina and weaving away. This is one of my favorite photographs. But again, what is Annie doing? That loom looks different. Also, too, I didn't know what looms, how they worked. They're kind of mysterious if you've never seen one in action. Oh my goodness, whoa, okay, sorry. All right, little preview there, sorry y'all. Okay, what is this? Would be really my reaction to it. Probably some of you know in this room, this is a tapestry loom. Don Page is weaving a tapestry, but I had no idea. But also, what a great photograph. Someone photographed him through the threads he's working with. So amazing. And this is Alex Reeves' hands weaving. This is on the back cover of our book because it's such an amazing photograph. And I think I always make a lot of photographs of my shuttle because of this picture in this sort of way. But I love this, the hands, and I think, we've even just seen hands. But hands and whose hands they are have so much meaning. But Trude Guermont-Pré is who I truly fell in love with. And she was both a photographer and a weaver. And so it's been so amazing to explore both of these mediums and together, but kind of under this inspiration of Trude and the work she made. These are 2 photographs she made at Black Mountain College. I'll leave it at that for right now. As I was at her family's home in New Jersey doing research, the first visit for the photography exhibition, they said, you might want to see just one of Trude's weavings that we have here before you have to catch the train. And so it's a mad rush. I don't remember this weaving, but I remember seeing it. I remember Marina taking me to where it was hanging on the wall and looking at it. And so it didn't, it was kind of a blur in my memory of what the weaving was, but it was I think a seed was planted there. I'll talk more about this in just a bit. It's a phenomenal weaving. Also, these photographs of Joseph and Annie were in the photography exhibition that I curated, and they're phenomenal too. So again, this is kind of also a conversation between all of this research and work that I've done over the last years. But just for Black Mountain College history note, Joseph Albers was invited to teach at Black Mountain, and they came in November of 1933, so just a few months after the college had started. Annie Albers, Joseph was by then an instructor at the Bauhaus. Annie had graduated from the Bauhaus, famous art and design school in Germany. Annie, the really neat part that we found through Michael's knowledge of the letters is that it was clear that Annie wanted to teach weaving in the correspondence before they arrived. And Albers said, my wife would like to teach weaving. And so it's a little different than some of the faculty wives that we talk about at Black Mountain College. But Annie founded the weaving program. It's her brainchild, as Michael Beggs likes to call it, at Black Mountain College. And this was her first opportunity to teach, which is really exciting. She started it the second semester, so 1934. Her first student's name was Alice Lee Swan. What a great name. They didn't have looms right away, so that took a while. But Annie just was able to explore both her own creative work in a way that departs from what she had learned at the Bauhaus, but then she also gets to teach. And so not much attention has been paid to Annie's teaching. A lot has been paid to Joseph's. And also, I think more attention could be paid to Annie's kind of personal sense of textile exploration at Black Mountain College and really pulling those works out. But in our exhibition, we were able to show this one, which is actually quite large. All right, so here's a photograph of some of Annie's students weaving. So if I'm researching with photography, I learned how to make photographs, worked in a darkroom. With weaving, I learned to weave. So I think this photograph is one of my favorites. This is Walter Gropius's adopted daughter down below, and my favorite, Mimi French, in the back. So working away, what are these looms and how do they work? So this is the first part of kind of my weaving as research. And again, I think if you have the opportunity to learn a medium you're writing about when you're not coming to it as a maker already, you can just understand it more deeply or talk about it in a different way. These are weavings from my first class, and I distinctly, I'm learning from everyone who's presented so far. I brought them because you bring things and you let people touch them and look at them, which, art history and the archives doesn't always happen. Archives a little bit more. But if anyone would like to look at these, of course, you're more than welcome. But I remember talking to Michael Beggs when I was in my first class, and I said, Michael, how should I approach this? Luckily, I had a wonderful teacher who loved color, so I got to have a color warp as my first warp. And then I did a twill pattern, which again at Black Mountain College they taught the basic weaves. But I was talking to Michael, and Michael's like, well, you can design it, or you could just see what happens. And so, of course, we did a little bit of sampling before, but then I was like, well, I really like this twill, but why would people just do it one way? don't you want to like turn it and do it the other way? So, reverse the treadling for people who know what I'm talking about. So I ended up designing my first weaving without really knowing, exactly that. But I totally remember talking to Michael, and he's like, you could design it, or you could just go for it and see what happens. All right. So as part of our research for the Black Mountain College show, also who someone studies with was of great interest to us because of who studied with Annie, who studied with Truda, and there were additional weaving teachers who taught at Black Mountain College too. But Annie and Truda are the ones who are there for the longest, and we would argue have the biggest impact. But my first weaving teacher was Maggie Inman, who teaches at the North Carolina State University Craft Center. Why every college and university doesn't have a craft center, I do not know. But this is an amazing model, and I would love to see more people doing it because the students in engineering love to come and make something to get a break, and it's so important. But anyways, they let community members take classes there. And we got to warp a loom and wind a warp. Oh my goodness, this is so many threads. I love winding a warp. It's like dancing with the thread. You're back and forth. It's moving all the way. Also, these beautiful colors of yarn that we were working with. I also wondered, and again, this is not an art historical argument, but it's one of those spaces when as a researcher and you're doing and experiencing things, thoughts like this occur to you. Did Joseph Albers's structural constellations, which you see here, did he get those from Annie's warping board? I don't know, but I like to think maybe he did. This was my second class that I took with Maggie, and I got to, somehow I came up with the basket weave pattern crossed my path, and I really liked this and weaving the whole first one as basket weave. Then COVID happened. I did rent a loom. It went very poorly by myself because I didn't understand the loom and I didn't understand tension and I didn't have a teacher. But then I moved out to Western North Carolina and I found Heritage Weavers and Fiber Artists in Hendersonville. They're located at Historic Johnson Farm, and I encourage anyone to stop by and see what they're up to. They have a room with looms. Members can rent the looms. They also offer a variety of weaving classes, but also other fiber arts too. And they have floor looms, which that's also sometimes a challenge to find someone who's teaching on floor looms, even in Western North Carolina. And so some people do table looms, but I wanted that full foot, hand, movement going back and forth. So my weaving teacher at Heritage Weavers and Fiber Artists is Ruth Howe. And so it's so wonderful to have found Ruth. She was the teacher I needed next for my explorations. My favorite part, these are pictures from Ruth visiting the exhibition with Heritage Weavers and Fiber Artists. But Ruth, I was like, Ruth, what's double weave? And she's like, well, and so we did this first class, which is a log cabin and sort of things. It was weaving boot camp too. But I was like, I'm coming across some weavings that are talking about double weave. What is double weave? And some people explain double weave is magic, which that totally works. But I'll show you in a moment and do my best at explaining it. But Ruth was like, I've never taught double weave. And she was inspired to teach double weave because of the works I was researching, which was just such a delight. This is double weave, and I've got the examples up here, but basically you have 2 layers of cloth. So hopefully the second one shows. And there's a way that when you're threading and preparing the loom, dressing the loom, as weavers say, you can send certain threads up or down so you can get solid expanses of color. Don Page's beautiful weaving is actually with inlay too, so it's double weave plus something more. But I was so thankful for Ruth to show me the magic of double weave. I asked Ruth if she would write a recommendation letter for me and Maggie too, so both of them, if she would write a letter of recommendation so I could get a fellowship, a scholarship at John C. Campbell Folk School. And that led me to a double weave class with a wonderful weaver named Lars Shimbalko. And Lars has roots back to Haywood Community College's amazing weaving program that we have going on. Lars was assisted by Monica, and Monica also is a Haywood Community College weaving program graduate, and that becomes important for some more reasons. But Lars was teaching double weave on 8 harness looms, so I'd only woven on 4 harness. And then Lars just had these amazing samples with amazing color. And so it was just, and there was this amazing room with a door, because they know they can't just let anyone in, of yarns. And so the opportunity to use so many more colors inspired by Lars was really, really special. Lars is now based in Philadelphia, but an amazing weaver and up to so many good things. Also, that loom that's in the exhibition, I got to weave on that too. And so we had some weavers from Warren Wilson College activating the loom in the exhibition. And that was so special to let people see someone actually weaving. And, you know, we could answer questions or just show them. My favorite was, of course, helping children move a shuttle across. But all right, weaving as method. I'm sorry, I am getting a bit behind here, so I will try to speed up. But I imagine Michael and Ma's conversations as like the shuttle going past, back and forth. So when you weave, there's a warp. The thread that goes from left to right is called the weft, but thread, weft, left, that helps you because the W's get confusing to anyone who doesn't know the language. But the weft builds up because you pass the shuttle back and forth. And the shuttle is the beautiful piece of wooden and with a bit of metal that Alex Reed's hands are holding. But Michael was based in California at the time, in Berkeley, and I was here in North Carolina. And so I imagine our conversations, we usually talked for hours on the phone, not Zoom or anything, because you have to last for hours. But imagine this is a shuttle going back and forth through our conversations and these threads accumulating and doing research where we could. We're also so pleased to have the knowledge and support of Heather South, who's lead archivist. Yeah, if anyone knows Heather South, please seek her out in the area because she is a tremendous resource for the Western Regional Archives and knowing the archives and also making you interested in things that you might not even think you're interested in. But Heather had created the pathway so that we can now access student files at Black Mountain College. And that's the big part that earlier researchers didn't have access to the student files because the students were living at the time. So many of them have passed, but if they have passed, then we can access their files and we can look to see how many classes did they take with Annie, what classes did they take, all of this amazing data. So Heather looked through all the cards because we didn't know who was still alive and who was not, and pulled out every student who had taken weaving. And we learned from her hard work that over 10% of all students at Black Mountain College took at least one weaving or textile design class. This is huge. Weaving was a far more significant part of Black Mountain College's legendary art and design curriculum than anyone really knew. And we did publish the list of students in the back of the book. So if you were like, I think so-and-so took weaving, we gave you a little phone book reference that you can seek that out. And these are the 3 graduates who actually graduated in weaving from Black Mountain College: Dawn Page, Marilyn Bauer, and then Lori Cadden Lindenfeld. Some of our exciting parts of research were that we discovered what Mimi French wove. So we contacted her family, and they had this. Mimi studied with both Joseph Albers and Annie Albers. Look at her color. We also learned that she continued to make work throughout her life. She made this needlepoint later in life, but it's very much tied to the leaf studies at Black Mountain. I think I'm a bit behind on time, but Trude Guermont-Prey taught at Black Mountain College from 1948 to 1949, which seems like a short time. She helped cover Annie's sabbatical. She wove this tapestry while at Black Mountain College, it is also based off of a leaf study. So it was a collage of 3 tulip tree leaves that was made by a fellow student that then she abstracted to this drawing, and then she painted the design on the warp. So she also used a painted warp at Black Mountain College, which really hadn't been done there in front of students for students to see. We got to show that weaving that I saw in New Jersey, hummingbird cages. And the brilliance of this is Truda took the warp threads and pulled them up and over and out of the weaving to enclose the loose fiber that she called hummingbirds in here. So the warp actually makes the cages for the hummingbirds. Truda made these 2 weavings around the same time. After Black Mountain, she goes to teach at Pond Farm, which is an amazing artist community. And then she teaches for decades at the California College of Arts and Crafts and founds their weaving program there and is there until her death. She made these 2 weavings around the same time, within a year, maybe 2 of each other. The space hanging is also double weave, but it is a masterful approach to double weave. All right, I think we don't have time for me to get into Ray Johnson, but briefly what I will say is Ray Johnson took 1 weaving class at Black Mountain College with Truda Guermont-Prey. I figured much more about Ray out through this exhibition. Also, he made this letter. It's a warp. Look at that. If you've ever seen knobby threads on a warp, not under tension, Ray was painting a warp in this letter, which was an epiphany to me. Robert Rauschenberg took weaving with Truda. He took 1 textile construction class at Black Mountain College, but that is kind of an under-recognized part of his background. And then Ruth Asawa, amazing artist, getting lots of exhibition and recognition right now. She actually took 0 weaving classes at Black Mountain because she was only coming for a summer, and Annie said, I don't think that's enough time to do weaving here with me, so you should study with Joseph. So I think Ruth had weaving at Milwaukee State Teachers College before she came to Black Mountain, but she actually didn't take weaving at Black Mountain College. But again, she does this looped wire technique and this bigger idea of weaving literacy, that even if you didn't take weaving, you absorb things about weaving in your studies when you were at Black Mountain. I'm also really excited to share this point in this space with everyone because this is a really exciting discovery that working across multiple archives, we could piece more together. There were 2 day students from Asheville who took weaving classes at Black Mountain College. This was kind of a new idea. They were having harder financial times, but these are 2 graduates of Stevens Lee High School here in Asheville. And by looking at their yearbook, we had their names from the records, but looking at their yearbook that is in Pack Library Special Collections, we could find pictures of them. And I think the one really exciting thing is there's an interview that mentions that they could have probably benefited more from a practical program at a junior college. But Jean Bruton, pictured here, after Black Mountain College, she goes to McDowell College for 2 years. She moved to Philadelphia in 1960, and there she goes to Temple University for a year and a half. So without Black Mountain College, would Jean have pursued all of that higher education? We don't know, but it's really exciting to think that maybe Black Mountain College did open some worlds for local Asheville student Jean Bruton. We couldn't find any weavings by them. If anyone does know, of course, let us know, but I think they probably don't exist. All right, last parts here. One of my most exciting discoveries was more weaving teachers through doing this exhibition. Banna Hoffer had already been down this path when she made the Score Shed. It was a commissioned work for the Black Mountain College Museum and Art Center that debuted and was premiered right before COVID in February 2019. But Banna had learned to weave herself, and she had talked to people who were weavers. One of those weavers is Ruth Gaines, and Ruth is with us today. And Ruth, yes, exactly. Ruth taught Banna to weave, but Ruth is founder, along with Catherine Ellis, is probably how we should say it, of Haywood Community College's weaving program. And that is an amazing program that more research should be done about because the history is absolutely phenomenal. But Banna was like, oh, you should talk to Ruth. And I was like, well, I've learned how to weave. No, she's like, well, she can teach you that. But there's this person named Frances Mayer who she studied with, and I think she's connected to Black Mountain College. Francisca Mayer is who covered for Annie on her first year of sabbatical. She only has one known weaving in the Victoria and Albert Museum that we have been able to find. Ruth had napkins woven in Francisca's workshop because Ruth went to Peru and worked in Francisca's workshop. So Ruth connected with Francisca after Francisca was at Black Mountain College. This was huge because we didn't know this, but it's all these people, all of these threads coming together. Catherine Ellis visited the Mexico exhibition at the Black Mountain College Museum and Art Center, and again, co-founder of the Haywood program. But before our exhibition was up, and learned that there was a weaving at Black Mountain College exhibition coming up. And Alice and Jeff at the museum asked Catherine, had a little conversation, but Catherine put together the Black Mountain College loom with the help of two other wonderful weavers, Amanda Thatch and Beth Johnson. And then Catherine warped the loom that was on display. And Melanie Wilder was a student of Catherine's. So Melanie heads up the Warren Wilson Fiber Arts program, and Catherine warped the loom that Melanie's students were weaving on. Like, the connections are amazing. And then also big thanks to Jeff Arnall and Alice Seabrill. Jeff's the director of the Black Mountain College Museum and Art Center, and Alice is the preservation director. But without all of their hard work and all the conversations, this exhibition wouldn't have been possible. I'm so sorry I talked for too long, but if you would like more information, the book is available wherever you usually buy books, or from your library, and it is in multiple library collections. There is this digital exhibition. It's not the same as seeing it in person, but if you didn't see it in person, all the installation photos are there. There's also recorded talks with Michael and myself and some artists. And then just released last week is a podcast from Yale University Press, who distributed our book. And there's a new episode where both Michael and I talk about the exhibition for you to listen to. So thank you all for listening. And I bet do we have any time for questions, or are we too short on time? All right.
Maybe one or two.
One or two.
Any questions for Julie? All right, well, if you